production of the Mississippi State University Extension Service.
Today on Farm Week, the U.S. is on track to an ethanol record, but the future of the renewable fuel standard is in doubt.
In southern gardening, think winter color has to be muted? Not with these flowers.
In the food factor, soup, it can keep you warm and do it in a healthy manner.
In the market, slower beef demand causes concern in the feeder cattle sector, while grain farmers who invested in more storage capacity see some payoff this year.
In the feature segment, sugar beets. A lot of the sugar we eat comes from them, and now some farmers want to feed them to their cattle.
Sugar beets are 80% digestible versus corn. Corn silage is only around at 45. So in theory, the rumen has more available to their stomachs. So in return, we should make more milk, and that's less going out the back end. Cows will utilize it faster, more efficient.
Good day, everyone. I'm Leighton Spann.
And I'm Artis Ford. Welcome to Farm Week.
Ethanol production hit a record in the U.S. in November.
Latent ethanol production during that week showed that the U.S. is on track to produce more than 15 billion gallons in 2014. The Environmental Protection Agency postponed again, making changes to the renewable fuel standard. Some say ethanol can survive without the RFS, but other biofuels probably could not.
Economists say the government's continued delay in deciding the amount of renewable fuels that must be blended with gasoline in 2014 may create problems for those seeking investors in the biofuels industry. Despite the potentially gloomy prospects, those same experts point to signs the ethanol industry may be ready to stand on its own.
At this point, it hasn't hurt it very much. If you look at how quickly or how much ethanol has produced over the past year, we're looking at an industry that is running about as strong as it ever has.
However, Hart, an assistant professor of economics, believes other, less mature biofuels will need the government to encourage use through minimum biofuel requirements set by the Renewable Fuel Standard, or RFS. Those next-generation fuels include cellulosic ethanol, which is often produced from the stalks and cobs of the corn plant. The Environmental Protection Agency announced it was again delaying a decision on the originally proposed 2014 RFS requirement that 18.1 billion gallons of biofuels be blended with gasoline. Of that amount, only 1.75 billion gallons, nearly 10%, are directed by the government to be cellulosic ethanol. The RFS, first established by Congress in 2005 to help reduce carbon dioxide emissions, was designed to gradually increase the amount of biofuels blended into U.S. gasoline. By 2022, 36 billion gallons of alternative fuels are federally mandated to be produced and mixed in domestic motor fuel.
It's an important piece, but it's not that important. That the industry is, if you will, self-sufficient, that the industry is cost competitive, that the industry can play in the marketplace, even if you didn't have the RFS. But does the RFS provide a signal for future growth? It definitely provides that.
Although Hart believes the ethanol industry is strong, he says dropping crude oil prices may create problems as biofuels try to remain competitive.
The wild card there would again be, do oil prices continue their slide or not? The more they slide, the harder it is for the ethanol market to balance back out again, especially when we look at needing to have exports to balance out.
With the temperatures dropping, it's time to prepare a classic cold weather staple for the next meal at your house. In this week's episode of The Food Factor, Natasha Haynes of the Mississippi State Extension Service tells you how you can save money and have a healthy meal with soup.
What's better on a cold winter's day than a steaming bowl of your favorite soup? Ooh, that smells good. A hearty bowl of a healthy soup can be the main dish to your meal.
Healthy soups can be made at home for pennies on the dollar. Here are a few simple tips to keep in mind. Start with a low-fat base. Take your pick of chicken, beef, or vegetable broth. Creamy soups are higher in fat and calories. If you want to make a creamy soup, simply swap a lower fat alternative, such as 1% milk for heavy cream.
One trick is to puree and mix a can of white beans to thicken the soup while adding fiber and protein.
Besides having a lot of fat, soups can be very high in sodium. Choose low sodium broth and add more spices to boost the flavor. Many recipes call for ingredients such as cheese, sour cream, and bacon. Instead of adding these straight into the soup, use them sparingly as a topping or a garnish. Homemade soups are great because they can be made ahead of time in large quantities. You can freeze and enjoy the extra servings for more than one meal.
With so many options for adding vegetables, soups are a great way to meet your daily serving requirement. You can even puree them to hide them from those picky little eaters. It's time to make healthy food a factor in your life.
For tasty soup recipes, visit the Food Factor Pinterest page at Mississippi State University Extension Service.
Well, we're in the late fall, but there are still options for color and interest in the landscape. In this week's Southern Gardening segment, Extension horticulturist Dr. Gary Bachman shows us some of his favorite cool season flowering plants.
It's the cool season, and there are still options to add color and interest to your landscape. Let's take a look at some of my fall favorites. Today I'm at Dogwood Ridge Farms in Poplarville, where Barbara and Mike Levy are growing a variety of great cool season landscape plants. A favorite bedding plant that is related to pansy is the viola. Violas are good choices for both landscape and containers. The penny citrus mix is a prolific flower producer. The flowers are displayed above the compact foliage in a way that says, "Hey, look at me." Flower colors include cream, orange, primrose, yellow, and yellow frost. I really like the penny azure, which is a gorgeous white and bright blue flower with purple streaks. Since moving to South Mississippi, Telstar dianthus has become one of my very favorite cool season plants. There are varieties of colors that include carmine rose, pink, and purple picote. Picote describes a flower having a lighter or darker edge. Telstar dianthus will be 8 to 10 inches tall and wide and will tolerate cooler temperatures. The Telstar dianthus is a great partner with either pansy or viola. These pairings can maintain interest from fall through the following spring. For foliage interest in the cool season, consider pink chablis spotted dead nettle. Known botanically as Lamium maculatum, pink chablis is a low-maintenance landscape plant. The leaves are a frothy confection of silver and green with cotton candy pink flowers that bloom well into the cool season. This is also a great spiller plant for combination containers. You can't go wrong with these fall favorites to add color and interest to your cool season landscape. I'm Gary Bachman for Southern Gardening.
Now, Layton, the pink chablis prefers environments with part to full shade. In our feature segment today, sugar beets. You make sugar with them, but some farmers in the upper Midwest believe they could replace corn in cattle rations. Time now for the markets with Layton. And you say that some in the beef sector are putting it that cattle futures fell out of bed at midweek?
That's right. It has been a while, though, since we've seen this kind of volatility in that market. In our headlines, the first week of December, cattle prices break lower. On-farm storage pays off this year, and soybeans are described as being in a transition period. We begin with the volatile market of the week, livestock. The first week of December has not brought holiday cheer to the beef sector as far as prices are concerned. Extension Ag economist Brian Williams has some analysis. Well, before we talk about this midweek price break, let's back up to that on-feed report right about Thanksgiving. Any surprises there?
There were a few surprises in there. Probably the biggest one came in the placements numbers. The expectation was for placements to be down about 4.2%. When the numbers came out, they were actually only down about 0.9%. And then a slight surprise in the on-feed numbers. They were up slightly from a year ago. The total on-feed was up slightly from a year ago, and it was expected to be down a little bit.
But as far as placement, still down, but not as far as the trade may have anticipated.
It was still down, but we're still dealing with a really tight supply. A lot of what we saw with the higher than expected placements is heavier cattle that were held on grass for the summer are going in now.
All right, this week, going back to what's been happening here, a lot of, it seems like uncertainty about future beef demand. What kind of brought that to the forefront, do you think?
There is, and there's been some question about it for a while now. As beef prices climb higher and higher, there's been question of where is that ceiling, and so there's been fears of hitting that ceiling, and right now we're seeing some of those fears again.
And I guess there's no way to know if this, what's happened this week, if that's been what you might call an official break, or if we're just in a stagnant period and they could go higher again.
Right, and we've seen this happen a few times before. It's really hard to tell in the short term. We've seen prices come down, but feeder cattle prices have bounced back a little bit. Live cattle have been they're hanging in there, but they haven't quite bounced back, and I think only time is going to tell.
So at this point, as we speak, the feeder cattle market looks to be in maybe a little better shape than live cattle?
Potentially. There's still some pressure on the feeder cattle market on both sides of things. On the one side, feedlots are seeing higher corn prices, and so they can't pay as much. But on the other side, we still have the tight supplies, and those fundamentals are still there.
The events in the beef sector have also created an uncertain tone in the hog market. Despite what some have said, the PED virus seems to be a non-issue so far, according to analyst Ted Seifried. However, he doesn't see any way around lower prices for hog producers.
Without any issues of PEDV, and with cash prices being what I'm going to call sloppy at best and mixed to maybe lower, I think we're kind of anticipating some lower prices down the line once we get past the holiday season. So I'm kind of thinking that the bounce was nice to see off the lows, but that might just be what it was, a bounce. And at this point, we could start to work lower, I would think.
No doubt a lot of Christmas trees are being bought this week, many of them from Choose and Cut Tree Farms. Our trivia quiz pertains to this particular industry in the state. Here's the question: how many Christmas tree growers are there in Mississippi? A, 72, B, 85, C, 143, or D, 169. I'll have the answer for you at the end of the markets.
We're going to pause for a short break on Farm Week. Coming up, we'll look at the calendar and the rest of the markets. Leighton Span reports growers who installed grain storage are seeing it pay off. In the feature segment today, sugar beets. They're usually used to make sugar, but some Wisconsin farmers believe they could replace corn as a cheaper and more digestible cattle feed.
Each year, many Mississippians are seriously injured or killed when farm tractors overturn. One cause of these accidents is improper hitching. If a tractor is hitched at any point above the drawbar, it can flip over backwards. Never hitch a tractor using the bar between the three-point hitch upper and lower links or at the top link attachment point. The stationary drawbar is the only safe location for tractor hitching. A message from the Mississippi State University Extension Service.
Before we get back to the markets, let's look at the Farm Week calendar. Farmers, landowners, consultants, and natural resource professionals should make plans to attend the Governor's Irrigation and Water Conservation Summit. It takes place December 10th at the MSU Delta Research and Extension Center at Stoneville. You'll learn practical ways to more efficiently use irrigation and preserve soil moisture. The hours are 9:30 a.m. to 3:20 p.m. Lunch will be served and there's no registration fee. Now, the 2015 Delta Ag Expo takes place Wednesday and Thursday, January 21st and 22nd. The location is the Bolivar County Expo Center in Cleveland. Managing profitability with low commodity prices is this year's theme. There will be more than 100 commercial exhibitors on hand. In addition to the regular commodity education sessions, there will be an ag drone demonstration. Methods for controlling wild hogs will also be covered. Go to our Farm Week website at farmweek.msucares.com for information on these and other events. Now check out this week's Farm Week Snapshot.
More and more grain bins have popped up across the Mid-South in recent years. Nationwide, economist Keith Good tells agfacts.com there's been a 16% increase in on-farm storage since the year 2000 in the United States. Good also reports an expanded use of other non-traditional grain storage as well, such as huge plastic bags placed on the ground. These developments, he says, have given producers more control over market prices, especially this fall. Good reports corn and soybean futures have risen 10% or more since September. Normally, grain prices are fairly stagnant or even move lower as the new crop hits the market. The soybean market is in the midst of a transition, according to analyst Don Roos. He says we're starting to see soybean meal crack just a little bit from a demand standpoint.
Really what we've had is just a very difficult transition from razor-tight, record-tight supplies on soybeans and soybean meal, from last year to this year. We've got an abundance of soybeans. Crush margins are huge, around $2.50 a bushel. So it's just a matter of time. We had a record crush the last month. And, at some point in time, we'll start to see that situation change. And you have to be careful that we don't run into a supply problem on the other side once we get over this very tight transition time frame.
The Associated Press reports that Hershey Foods, the chocolate company, is exploring shifting away from using high fructose corn syrup in some of its products. Supposedly, Hershey might switch to sugar because of some consumers' belief that high fructose corn syrup is less healthy than sugar. However, the AP notes that there is currently insufficient scientific evidence to show that corn syrup is any worse than regular sugar. Before our feature story, let's check the trivia answer for this week. The correct choice is B. The Extension Service reports Mississippi had about 85 Christmas tree growers in 2013.
In our feature segment today, sugar beets. The chances are good that the sugar in your sugar bowl came from sugar beets grown in the northern part of the United States. Now, the high price of corn in recent years has prompted some Wisconsin dairy farmers to turn to sugar beets as a cheaper, better feed source for their cows. Mark DeMarcus Josh Bittner explains.
Autumn in the Midwest offers a colorful backdrop for farmers taking to the field to reap what they've sown. And while fall harvest is a common sight across the land, what one group outside the town of Antigo is pulling out of the ground is anything but typical for America's dairyland.
I think we're the only ones in Wisconsin so far growing them to feed cows.
Though sugarcane, a tall perennial grass which houses sugar in its stalk, is grown in states with more tropical climates, over half of the entire U.S. sugar supply actually ripens underground. Sugar beets, cultivated in a wide variety of temperate environments across the nation, store sweetener in its root.
That's about a 7-pounder.
Over 1 million acres of the sucrose-producing flora are grown annually in the U.S. According to USDA, the land of 10,000 lakes reported a record 12.3 million tons of the crop in 2012. And while the Red River Valley region of Minnesota and North Dakota has traditionally logged hefty yields, companies like Minnesota-based Beta Seed seek further expansion by scientifically augmenting sugar beets to offer what it claims is the best nutrient balance among livestock feed options.
This is just over 20% sugar. We call them feed beets because they're meant for feed. The feed beet's going to bring the sugar, the carbohydrate, and then also the digestible fiber, and it's a one crop.
For many livestock owners, feed can be their highest annual expenditure. While most cattle feed is corn-based, some producers near sugar facilities have been able to take advantage of the sweet crop's added nutrition. Trucking in this alternative ration has rarely proven cost-effective. But swapping out nearby cornfields with sugar beets is a notion that's picking up steam.
What really spawned this whole thing was when the price of corn hit $6, $7, that we had feedlot operators calling us, hey, can I plant beets? I mean, I love beet pulp and I'll feed it all day. Can I get more? Can I grow my own beets? Well, certainly you can. In Wisconsin, obviously it's a #2 dairy state in the country. So there's a lot of cows here that could use this type of forage to, maximize their milk production, and beets are a great fit.
Though California has overtaken the Badger State as the nation's top dairy producer, Wisconsin's strong infrastructure remains intact. Farmers looking to compete in a global marketplace must keep an eye on the efficiency of their operations. And sugar beets are highly effective in this regard because of the slow release of sugars locked in the plant's pectin, a dietary fiber. For cows, consuming beets may create an ideal digestive process capable of improving the quality of the animal's liquid commodity.
Sugar beets are 80% digestible versus corn. Corn silage is only around at 45. So in theory, the rumen has more available to their stomachs. So in return, we should make more milk, and that's less going out the back end. Cows will be able to utilize it faster, more efficient.
And proponents say sugar beets employ cornfield nutrients more effectively than the grain itself. While corn roots permeate the soil up to almost 2 feet below the surface, sugar beet roots, reaching 6 to 8 feet underground, scavenge for deep excess nitrogen that corn can't reach. Preliminary results indicate higher yields from beets versus corn when considering the same field area. Mark Moss, along with business partner Mark Brown, launched a speculative venture with Beta Seed, who cut Evergreen Dairy a deal on feed beets for their initial planting. And now the dairy partners are poised to benefit from the new feedstock. Brown also holds an interest in another dairy farm outside Green Bay, which is introducing feed beets to cows.
Our idea was to raise the beets in 2 different areas of Wisconsin, going to 2 different breeds of cows with 2 different sets of nutritionists, so that once we get these beets harvested, that we have a good understanding of how they feed and what we can do with them in a diet.
Jeff Bentley is a 3rd-generation dairyman near Pulaski, Wisconsin. With a herd of around 1,900 Holsteins, the idea of expanding feed rations intrigued him. While dairy prices currently are above most producers' cost of production, Bentley still sees room for improvement.
We're hoping for some savings, but if we could keep everything equal and have a healthier cow, I think it's going to be worth it. As a dairyman, we watch the markets. I'm a buyer of corn, but the price of corn and all feeds being high has brought the price of milk up because of, the price of everything. The sugar beet is a way maybe for us to get a little niche market and use our ground a little bit, more advantageously, especially up in north of Green Bay.
The extremes of the upper Midwest climate are capable of wreaking havoc on corn and soybean fields, though genetically modified seeds have allowed more resilience in the face of wild weather swings. Sugar beets provide a drought-resistant crop which basically lies dormant during periods of intense heat. But when water returns, the plant resumes growth. And post-harvest, a textbook Wisconsin winter could offer the benefit of cheap outdoor storage before the product reaches its consumer.
If you get 55 degrees or cooler root temperatures, it makes for ideal storage. Comes down to how much can we raise this crop for versus, say, growing corn or hay. I'm from the Minnesota, North Dakota region, and our typical cost of production on beet production is on the low side, maybe $22 a ton to as high as $30. Corn silage is in that $28 to $30, $32 a ton range. So it comes down to what's going to cost, your input cost per cow. Should be better with beets.
For Market to Market, I'm Josh Bittner.
And you can watch this story again on sugar beets on our Farmweek website, Facebook page, or YouTube. You can also see the video and the script at Market to Market's Iowa Public Television website. Our website address, farmweek.msucares.com. We're also available at twitter.com/farmweek. Now, Leighton, I had an interest in this story because I lived for 9 years in South Florida in the sugarcane growing area down there, of course, so I kind of prefer cane sugar.
Right. Direct competitor.
Yeah, when it comes to sugar. But what's interesting is farmers are creative. Now in that area down there in the glades, they are actually growing corn silage, shipping it up to the north end of Lake Okeechobee to the dairies up there. So that way it's a new crop for them, and the farmers up at the dairies get the corn silage. They're just diversifying, which is what they're trying to do here. Well, we are at the end of Farm Week for this week. On our next show, turf grass.
Mississippi State University's Golf and Sports Turf Management program is well known for the quality and expertise of its graduates.
And the food factor will ask some advice on eating wisely but well in the holidays.
In Southern gardening, Christmas trees. There are 3 Southern selections that make great Yule trees.
For the rest of the Farm Week crew, I'm Artis Ford.
And I'm Leighton Spann. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next week.